always used to joke with the staff that when we got to a certain point with funds out, that I was going to disappear for 6 months. And then somebody said to me, "We've actually hit that target, Jason." I said, "Right." And I turned around and walked back out of the office. And
welcome to the Business Behind Your Business, conversations to help your business grow and thrive. Hi, I'm Paul Sweeney, founder of Pretium Solutions, Chartered Accountants and Certified Business Advisors, hosting the Business Behind Your Business. So welcome back, Jason Smith from Capital Plus Finance. It's great to have you back with us today, Jason.
Great to be here, Paul.
Great. And look, last time we spoke, we were talking about asset finance, which is actually your line of business, but we're going to do something a little bit different today, and we're going to actually talk about your experience as a business owner, but more particularly your experience of having sold a business previously.
Okay, yep, sounds great.
Great. And so you want to tell us a little bit about, okay, so we know that you're in asset finance at the moment, and Capital Plus Business is your current, Capital Plus Finance is your current business at the moment. So tell us a little bit about your first business and how that started. What business were you running at that time?
Yeah, well, look, I had a business called Cash Flow Advantage, and basically I've been a business owner since I was 24. I started out in real estate, and we morphed into another business that got us into factoring or debtor finance around 2008, and we grew that business. And basically I had the best of intentions of having that as a family business. My children were quite young at the time, and I wanted to grow it over a 10, 15, 20 year period. And basically we kept growing, we kept adding more people on, we had great customers, and the time came in around 2016 where I made the very difficult decision at the time to sell the business.
So you hadn't started the business with a plan of selling, you actually started that business with a plan of having it as a family business and transferring it to the next generation.
Yeah, look, I did. I'm a big Jim Collins fan, and Built to Last and Good to Great and all that sort of stuff. And so I didn't really I was very emotionally attached to the business, but it was in probably the last 2 years, around the 2014 mark, when we were really scaling up and doing well, and the business was very profitable, and I wasn't a hardline to the business. I wasn't a sales guy like I am now, taking 50 calls a day. I was working more on strategy and systems and processes, and obviously making sure we had good credit policy because we were in the lending business. And it just dawned on me that you build businesses to have something that's saleable at a point in the future, and you don't necessarily have to sell it, but you really do want to have it so that it is a saleable business.
But there's a couple of things you just mentioned there. So I guess one of the first things that comes out is that as a 24-year-old, most 24-year-olds don't go and start a business. And look, we have this trend of, you go to university, you get employed, and when you're in your 40s and you're going through your midlife crisis, well, then you think about starting a business. But 24, young age to start a business. So I'm guessing at 24 you didn't go in with the plan to sell the business at the future.
No, we just went in there as a 24-year-old single, with a lot of focus on materialistic possessions and just making as much money as we could, and that was in real estate. We managed to come across a very good mentor back then. This is my business partner at the time was my brother, and we just absolutely worked our asses off, had systems and processes in place, and grew a pretty decent sized real estate business and rent roll, and actually did sell that in I think about 2005 or 2006, and with no intentions of selling, but we got out of that business.
So you've got out of a couple of businesses. So one of the things is that you were able to get out of it at a profit. You were able to sell those businesses. So what did you do to be able to have a business that could be sold? Because I talk to a lot of business owners who are, they've had their business for 20 and 30 years and they're going to sell because they want to retire, but there is nothing to sell. There's no value. So what did you do to your business to make it saleable?
Well, look, if I think about Cash Flow Advantage, what we did is we developed a business that had a very good name in the market, but it really came down to systems and processes. When I took over as the sole director of the business in about 2011, I think it was, and it was a very small business at that point because we had other businesses that were helping our revenue. But I just made the decision: I'm not going to be the business development manager. I'm not going to be the credit guy. I'm not going to be this. I'm going to be the leader of this business, and grow something that has systems and processes and rigid structures that allow it to operate well. So I think in a nutshell, I removed myself as being the heartline by making sure when I had sales guys bringing in a lot of business, I didn't go, oh wow, gee whiz, he's bringing more business than what I ever did when I was a sales guy. I was like, that's fantastic. I don't need to be here. I always used to joke with the staff that when we got to a certain point with funds out, that I was going to disappear for 6 months. And then somebody said to me, we've actually hit that target, Jason. I said, right. I turned around and walked back out of the office, and I think I ended up taking 2 weeks off rather than 6 months off.
No, I think it's a great way of looking at a business, that if you can get your business to the point where you can go away for that extended period. You talked about 6 months. I say if you go away for a year and you can come back and your business is making more profit and more value than when you left, you've really created a great business. And look, most small business owners are struggling to take any time away from their business, and I think that is because of the reliance on them as the sole person. But you've created in your business systems and processes which meant that it wasn't depending on you. You had other people doing the sales work for you. So when did you decide that you needed to have those processes in place? What was the reason for putting them in place? So that, most younger people in business don't think about that necessarily. So what was the reason for doing that?
Well, it depends what it depends what your makeup is. For me, my makeup was always, I loved the thrill of a deal, chasing a deal, and then that morphed into I like strategy and leadership and marketing. I'm a big fan of good marketing and good customer service. So I think it was really drilled into me as a 24-year-old that you follow a system. Okay, and this is a system that we follow to succeed in real estate business. And when Cashflow Advantage rolled around, started to get to a decent size, and you got money out there, and you go, well, we've got to have this process. If this happens, then we do this, and if that happens, then we do this. So I think it was just being a little bit older. I was probably in my late 30s, early 40s when it really started to get that momentum, and going, well, I might not have had in my head that I was going to sell it at the time, but it was like, well, we've got to systemize this. I know that from being, when I was 24, how well it worked. Let's get the processes and procedures in place and make sure this is systemized.
So as a business grows, and I think you were experiencing some quite rapid growth at that point, where there's a dependence on you as the owner, what tends to happen is that you end up doing a lot more hours, you end up being more stressed. So having those systems and processes in place meant the business could grow at a controlled level, and you could manage that growth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And we had a little chat before this podcast started. And my business, it's not this Capital Plus Finance business. It's not a startup business anymore. It's coming up to 3 years. There's some good systems and processes in place, but it's still a bit frantic for me with how much is happening in the business. And I just keep coming back to the importance of the old cliche of working on your business and not in your business. And having good people, I had good people at Cashflow Advantage, some of them still with me, and good people in this business where they say, Jason, you need to delegate that. Okay, we can do that for you. So having those sorts of people in your business, and my business is, very small compared to the last business that I grew, but I still can go away all of January and divert my phone for extended periods of time to people in my business that are just more than happy to step up and take things on.
And do you think that you made a conscious decision to do that very early on? Because I think a lot of owners wait until things get too much before they start to delegate. Was that a deliberate decision you made?
It's a deliberate decision from being in business for so long, seeing how it works when you've got good systems in place and seeing how it doesn't work so well when you don't have good systems in place, and being an avid reader. We're always talking about books, Paul, when we're not doing podcasts and my board meetings, and it doesn't matter what you read. If you're reading a business book, they're talking about processes and systems and this is how you do things. So look, it's just ingrained in me that that's what you've got to do if you really want to scale a business.
Look, you mentioned reading, so we might put a few of your favourite books in the notes for people to follow. You mentioned Jim Collins, and I think there are a few other books that we've talked about in the past as well. But Do you read regularly? How often do you read a book?
I read every day. I read every day for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm not a huge fan of Audible books. I've had Audible for probably before Amazon owned it. But I wander off in the car. I'm usually making calls in the car within the law, with the phone in the cradle and that. But so for me, reading is unwinding of an evening or lunch break. I just leave my phone in the office and say, girls, I'm taking a break and I'll go have a read for 20 minutes. So it's not a chore for me. It's something that I really enjoy. So I do. And look, I do have. I read a book called Atomic Habits, and I have a habit journal. And in one of those habit journals is read every day. Yeah. You put a little cross for that day that you read, and you end up reading a lot of books. And I don't read for the sake of reading. I read to understand and think about how can this improve my life or how can this improve my business.
I think pulling an example from one of the books we both read is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, where he talks about sharpening the saw. You can keep chopping down the tree, but when the axe is blunt, it's not very effective. You need to take time out and sharpen the saw so you're more effective. And reading is one example of that. And I think let's go back to the beginning when you mentioned you had your mentor in place. So finding a mentor that can actually guide you in some of the decisions you need to make and give you feedback on how you're going. I think that's really an important step.
Look, it is. Mentors are so important, and sometimes they're hard to find in industries. And look, I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but there's, I saw something on LinkedIn the other day, and they said it really well. Profile doesn't equal profit. So that person who has this massive following on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook and looks really successful, that doesn't quite equal profit. And another saying I love is big hat, no cattle. So he might have a really big hat on, but he hasn't got a lot of cattle. So the mentor that we had, he was the real deal. He was a really successful guy. He said, and back in a time where you didn't pull punches, it was like, this is what you have to do if you want to succeed.
Yeah.
You can't work 40 hours a week and do this if you want to succeed. If you're really serious about getting to this level in your business.
Yeah, I think the other thing with a mentor is that they're a guy that's going to, or a guy or a lady that's going to pull you up and tell you when you're heading in the wrong direction and get you to question whether the decisions you're making are actually the right ones at that time. Yeah. And I've had a number of mentors in my career, and some of the best ones have been the ones that have been most upfront and said, look, what you just did then, you could have done a lot better. Yeah. And this is why. Not say, you did that wrong, but this is how you could improve that process, and this is what you would expect from changing that. Yeah. So I think, there's a couple of things there: mentoring, getting advice, and keeping up to date with your skills. But the systems and processes are a fantastic place to start building a business that can sell, that's independent of you as the owner.
Yeah, they're not sexy. They're not fun to write, or not fun for me. Might be fun for you being an accountant, but not fun for me as somebody who sees himself as a sales guy. But they're just so important.
Yeah. And I think we overcomplicate the idea of having systems and processes, and that's why a lot of business owners don't put them in place. And look, we look at a lot of different ways of doing it. There, as simple as, okay, what do I do? Write down the steps. Yeah. And even if you don't want to type it up and make it pretty, you just photocopy a whole bunch of sheets. That's the process. Yeah. Or even now with so much video, you've got so many tools to record a video.
That's right.
When we're training, if we have to do something or show somebody once, chances are we're going to have to show somebody else another time. So we record a video of it. Only takes 15-30 seconds. We're not talking about Spielberg productions, but it's basically, okay, when you're doing this is the process. You have to go here. This is the questions. This is how you answer it, and this is the outcome that we're expecting. Yeah. We don't need to make it complicated, but the value from having those systems and processes is phenomenal.
Look, it is, and you mentioned that recording the video. I do a lot of that. Make my staff watch training videos on the software and that we're using or the process of doing something. But there's so many great tools out there. Like we've got the free version of, I think it's called Loom or Loomy. Loom, I think it's called, and it's just really good. Plus, Zoom. I think you can do it on Zoom and download the video content. It's pretty powerful. Yeah.
So, having good team members is important, but I think the systems and processes are essential. So, going through the sale process, how did you find the sales process? Was it easy? Was it confronting?
Look, it was really confronting. I'd say it was one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make. You know, because I was very emotionally attached to this business, as I'm emotionally attached to my current business. But I understand what business is about now. It's about getting it ready for sale, and if you hang on to it, great. But geez, make sure in your 5-year plan or whatever it is that you have it as a saleable business. So it was very emotionally tough. I still remember where I was standing, where I was standing out on my back lawn and said, "Okay, let's do this." And that was the handshake agreement, and it was a really easy process. It was a public company, a small cap public company at the time, a bigger cap public company now, and the CEO was just delightful to deal with. Straight shooter, absolute straight shooter. I almost, this is unheard of, but I almost didn't need to get lawyers involved. And I had some lawyers involved, and then it became really apparent that it was just moving ahead really well, and it went exactly as it should have.
And so as an accountant that advises people on buying and selling businesses, one of the things that we would do as part of that process for the buyer is what we call a due diligence review, where we would go through your compliance with tax, your registrations, your accounting systems, and your processes. And where those things are lacking or there's issues, then that we would say either the business is not worth what you're going to pay for it, so you have to reduce your offer, or walk away from this business. It's not worth your time. There's so many problems with it, but you had good systems and processes in place. You had a good team. You had a good product. And you didn't need to be there for the business to have value. So you had a very saleable product, and that whole sales process, from what you've described, is way easier than what I've seen in a lot of situations where the processes weren't in place. Yeah,
I think that was definitely an anomaly. There's no doubt about that. And the due diligence was done over a weekend, and there were some key people, involved in that in my business that knew what was going on. But yeah, it was a bit smoother than usual, I think.
I think from what you're saying, I'd say it's a lot smoother than normal. Having been involved on the buyer's side and doing due diligence, sometimes that can pan out for weeks or months. And it creates quite a stressful situation. So if you can avoid that stress when you're going to sell, because selling is quite an emotional thing for a lot of business owners. The business is a big part of what you do. So avoiding that stress.
Very, very emotional. Very emotional. I still remember, having a guilt-free glass of wine at 12:30 a.m. on the day that I was going to tell my team that this is the decision that I've made.
And so going forward from that decision to sell, were you having to stay in the business with a transition period?
Look, there was sort of a transition period, and only one. Look, the sales guys came across, but there was only one operations person come across, and the idea that I was being involved in the new business under a new role and introducing my sort of marketing and some of those sales and marketing ideas that I had. So I did. I don't think I was tied to the business, but I was with that business for 16 months.
Okay. Yeah, which is a fairly normal transition period for an exit.
And when I realised as a 45-year-old entering the corporate world for the first time that the corporate world wasn't for me.
Right. So after you sold the business, what was the next step?
It was. I think I got a check. I got handed over a check. So that was.
So checks are these things that used to indicate transfer of money. Yes.
Yeah. So I got a check, and that was I sat in traffic for an hour and a half coming back home, and my wife, she's always very thoughtful and had a card and talked about the next chapter of life and all that, and so basically I just entered the corporate world and did the best I could as what I was doing there before I went. Oh, you know what? I've been a business owner for 21 years. I've been working since I was 15. I'm 45 years old. I think I'm going to take a year off, and I think there was a bit of speculation that I was going to leave and open up another business in competition. But I didn't. I took just short of a year off and did a lot of cycling and drank a lot of coffee and did a lot of travelling when I could travel.
And what? Where was your mind after that year? Like, where were you positioned?
I loved having that time off.
Yeah.
People would joke to me that, the next thing you know, you'll be watching daytime TV and you'll be in your tracksuit pants, not getting out of your tracksuit pants. I didn't have one day of boredom. I was motorbike riding with mates that had a bit of free time. You find guys that don't work on Fridays and cycle. That takes up half your day. When you've got younger children, you're picking them up. They were a bit younger at the time. You're picking them up from school at 3:30. Did a bit of, a lot of travel. Did some hiking to Mount Everest Base Camp, and went to Europe with my family. So it was a great headspace to be in. It was a fantastic headspace to be in, and just go, look, I really like this, but I think I liked it so much because I knew I had to go back to work. I couldn't keep doing this as a 45-year-old with two sons in private schools. I had to go back to work and do something. Right. So I came back, in 2018, thinking that I want to be a mortgage broker or an asset finance broker with my network that I had, and I chose asset finance broking, predominantly asset finance broking, and I wanted to be one of those guys that worked their backside off through the year and disappeared on the 15th of December and came back after Australia Day, which many finance brokers do. But then I realised I don't like working from home, and I don't like being a one-man show, and I don't like not being able to delegate. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to build a business again.
Mm. So, and now you've got a business, and you've got the systems in place, and you've got the processes.
Still a work in progress. I have every Friday as a strategy day where my phone's diverted mostly to my team. And this is just something I've started to do recently, but working on, right, where are we going, what's working, what's not working, what process is right, what isn't right. So it's still a struggle. It's not easy, even after all these years, but I just understand the importance of it.
Mm. Oh, great, fantastic. So there's some good examples of how you've created a good, solid business that's profitable. Allows you to have a business that doesn't control you. You're able to be independent of that business, and then when the time comes to sell, it's ready to sell at a good price. Yeah. We haven't talked about price, but at a good price. Yeah. And the sales process in your case was very straightforward because you've done all the work in preparation. Yeah. Yeah. So and that's some, I guess really that's. Well, unfortunately, it's a limited example because I see too many businesses that don't have the systems and processes in place. The business is dependent on them. They can't extract value from it when they go to sell, and the outcome is that they don't have, they're not able to have time off because they have to go and get another job because the business didn't provide the value for them. Yeah. And look, that's something we want to encourage people to avoid. So get those. I think if anything, get systems and processes in place and start making the business run independently of yourself. Yeah,
don't be the hard line or the rainmaker. You got to be the one that look, when I sold my business, they could just absorb the business, and look, they were a very well run business as well, but virtually no one came across. It was just one person that came across. Yeah. Apart from the sales guys who were just going out there, drumming up business. Yeah. And it's I see it with all my client base now that, look, it really just comes down to making sure you're profitable as well. That's it. All comes down to a multiple of profit, more often than not, unless you're selling, a mortgage book or something like that. But that's just, be profitable. And that being profitable means having processes in place so that you're reviewing what's going on. So, aren't I making enough margin on that? Or, do we need to scale back here or scale up here?
Great. And I guess when people decide to sell, that's the time they do a clean-up of the business and put in systems and processes. And as a working for the buyer or doing the due diligence and reviewing the business, we often go back and say, well, we're going to discount all that stuff, all that clean-up stuff you've done in that year. We want to see what the business is really like. So we'll go back to prior years. Yeah. And look, the clean-up stuff, it stands out. So you've got to have that process in place, those systems, that profitable business in place well before you decide to sell. And the advantage is you're not just window dressing it for sale, you're actually getting the benefit by having a profitable, well-run business that's not as stressful for you as the owner by getting these things in place before you decide to sell. We often say to people that you should design your business so that it can be sold at any time at a good price.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do that, you're going to be making profits along the way, and you're going to not have that stressful business. It's going to be delivering value for you, and you're going to be able to take time off and do those things that you really enjoy, like spend time with your kids and holiday and enjoy the activities you like, and not just enjoy them on a budget, but enjoy them as you intend or as you want to.
That's right.
And so what's the one key thing that you would tell somebody that's thinking of starting a business that they should, above everything else, get in place?
Well, one key thing is really hard. The first thing that popped into my head was don't make excuses. Just have a. And I know, sorry, Paul, it's not one thing. It really does come through to, you're going to be everything. You're going to be the leader, the manager, the salesperson, the marketing guy. You're going to wear a lot of hats, but you need to have those processes in place so that your business just keeps ticking along and you get that momentum. And we've talked about that in our businesses, how we've got this momentum now through the marketing we're doing and the processes that we have. So sorry about not one key thing.
Well, I guess they're all interrelated, but the systems and processes are really important, and that need to throw your energy into it. I think a lot of people, particularly leaving a corporate role or an employed role, where they've got all those resources behind them and the system's already in place, make the transition and expect that everything will they'll leave one environment, pick up in another, and everything will work exactly the same. It's not the case. There's a big learning curve as an owner, and you're just throwing all your energy into it. You do have to pour a lot of resources into it, particularly at the startup stage, and getting those systems and processes in place and working and reviewing them. I think you mentioned that you've got to review what you're doing and making sure it's working correctly.
That's right. I still see. This might be a little bit off topic, but I still see young business development managers come out and have a coffee. I'm sure you get people, suppliers out here selling things to you. So in the finance world, you get a lot of business development managers coming out having a coffee, and they haven't quite identified that showing up and throwing up and talking about their business and themselves for 40 minutes isn't a good coffee meeting. It's not about them. It's about relationships. That's a bit off topic, sorry.
Well, actually, that's something we can talk about a bit more, but we are in business, but we do business with people.
That's
real
right.
people.
Yeah, no matter how, even these huge corporations, it's relationships.
So, Jason, thanks for sharing all that wisdom with us today. It's been great value. So if our listeners want to get in contact with you to find out, how you can help them with their business, but also if they want to engage you, what's the best way to contact you?
Look, I think calling the office number, 1300 294 887, or my mobile, which is on every social media channel known to man, be happy to have a chat.
Great. And on the social media, that's Capital Plus Finance?
Capital Plus Finance, my personal LinkedIn page, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Great, fantastic. We'll put links to those in the show notes as well. And thanks again, Jason, for coming in today.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for listening. Do you have a question you'd like our team of experts to answer? If you do, send your question to podcast@thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. To hear more from The Business Behind Your Business, don't forget to subscribe using your favourite podcast player. Or you can visit the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website.